now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade JJ Williams, and it's new release Saturday, and keeping up with the theme of musicals, we're going to be taking a look at Matilda the Musical, starring Alicia Wire, Lashana Lynch, Emma Thompson, Stephen Graham, Andrea Riseborough, Lauren Alexandra, and Carl Spencer. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. As I said in the introduction, it's new release Saturday, and in keeping with the theme of musicals here this month, we're going to take a look at Matilda the Musical. Now, while other parents adore their newborn children, Mrs. Wormwood is distraught to learn that she is pregnant and in labor. To Mr. Wormwood's confusion, She has a girl, and they decide to name it Matilda. Despite her parents' disdain, Matilda grows into a sweet child who loves reading books and visits Mrs. Phelps, the librarian, every day. Upon discovering that Matilda has not been properly schooled, Miss Jennifer Honey and an inspector visit the house in order to suggest that Matilda be sent to Cruncham Hall. Angry at the fine, Mr. Wormwood warns the head mistress, Miss Agatha Trunchbull, about Matilda. So, in retaliation, Matilda tricks him into dyeing his hair green. On her way to school, Matilda tells Mrs. Phelps her story about an escapologist who falls in love and marries an acrobat. Once the school bell rings, Matilda befriends a new girl named Lavender. They are taught to fear the school and Miss Trunchbull by Hortensia, an older student, along with the rest of the students at Cruncham Hall. In Miss Honey's class, Matilda is able to solve a complex math equation on the board and confesses that she loves reading most of all. Miss Honey tries to convince Miss Trunchbull to move Matilda to a more advanced class, but Miss Trunchbull refuses to let Matilda be an exception to the rules. Back at home, Matilda criticizes her father, who furiously rips her library book apart and wrongly sends Matilda to her room. In the morning, she glues his hat to his head in retaliation. At school, Matilda decides to lead the students in protecting Nigel from being wrongfully punished, and Miss Trunchbull throws Amanda Thrip by her pigtails over the fence instead. The next day, Miss Trunchbull falsely accuses Matilda of stealing a slice of her private chocolate cake, but Bruce Bogtrotter reveals that he is the culprit by belching a chocolatey belch. Miss Trunchbull then punishes Bruce by forcing him to eat the entire cake, promising that he will be forgiven if he can manage it. Furious that he is able to succeed, Miss Trunchbull condemns him to the chokey regardless. Matilda attempts to defend him as he is led away, and later on, Matilda continues her story for Mrs. Phelps, and we discover that the now pregnant acrobat was forced to perform a dangerous stunt by her stepsister. The acrobat is horribly injured in the process and dies after giving birth to a daughter. The escapologist forgives the stepsister and asks her to help him raise his daughter, but the stepsister secretly bullies her. Back at home, Mr. Wormwood locks Matilda in her room for criticizing how he tricks people into buying his cars. Matilda then ends her story. The aunt locks the daughter into the cellar and goes out. The escapologist comes home and learns that his daughter has been mistreated, but he himself never returns home after going to confront the stepsister. Miss Trunchbull then forces the children to go through challenging exercises in order to crush their rebellious spirits. Meanwhile, Lavender slips her pet newt, Isaac, into Miss Trunchbull's drinking water, and Matilda furiously uses her newly discovered telekinesis to make Isaac embarrass Miss Trunchbull. Miss Honey then invites Matilda to tea at her cottage, and while there, Matilda learns that her story is real. The escapologist and the acrobat are Miss Honey's parents, and the evil stepsister is none other than Miss Trunchbull. Matilda then leaves the cottage and uses her powers to destroy the chokey. Back at home, Matilda discovers that her father tricked the mafia, and now the family must flee to Spain. After hearing the news, Matilda cries in her room about never being able to see Miss Honey, Mrs. Phelps, and Lavender ever again. When the kids arrive at school the next day, Miss Trunchbull forces them to spell words correctly or be locked in a brand new chokey. She has Lavender spell a made up word, tricking the other children into rebelliously spelling words incorrectly on purpose so that she can lock them all in the chokey. However, Matilda uses her telekinesis to pretend to be the vengeful ghost of Magnus Honey, Miss Honey's father. She uses him to destroy all of her new chokies and then grabs her now pigtailed hair and launches her out of the school, just as Miss Trunchbull had done with Amanda Thrip. Miss Honey then tells Miss Trunchbull never to return and takes back the keys to her father's house. The children, led by Bruce and Hortensia, all celebrate their freedom and destroy Miss Trunchbull's statue in the process. When Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood come to take Matilda to Spain, Miss Honey begs them to let Matilda stay with her. They allow Matilda to be adopted by Miss Honey, and Matilda uses her powers to unglue her father's hat. With Miss Honey as the new head mistress, the children rename the school the Big Friendly School. Mrs. Phelps is overjoyed that Matilda's true story has a happy ending and that Matilda and Miss Honey live happily together as our movie comes to its close. I had never seen the 1990s version of Matilda with Mara Wilson, so I had no real frame of reference going into this. All I knew is that this was a musical version of that movie. However, that being said, I was bored to tears by this. None of the songs were memorable. None of the songs stuck with me afterwards. The story was boring. The only part of the story that I really enjoyed was Matilda telling the story of the acrobat and the escapologist. Everything else that happened did not interest me in the least. For those of you that have seen the 90s version of Matilda and have grown up with it and revere it as a movie, maybe if I watched that version, I'd feel differently about this. But having seen this, I have no real desire to ever see that movie because the story should still be generally the same. It's just not going to have the songs. And the story did nothing for me, nor did the songs. I'm sorry if this is so harsh, so cut and dry, but it just is what it is. There was nothing about this movie that really gripped me and riveted me. When it comes to my review for this, I give it a half a star out of 5 stars. It was just bad, in my personal opinion. Like I said, the fact that Matilda telling the story to her librarian friend was the only part that I enjoyed. It kind of tells you everything you need to know right there. Those of you that have seen Matilda the Musical, what do you think? Am I being fair? Am I being too harsh on it? Let me know. Let's have that conversation. If you're watching the premiere, leave your comments over here. If you're watching on demand later in the day, leave your thoughts and comments down here. Let's have that conversation, that discussion, that debate, that interaction that I'm always asking you guys for in the comments below. And make sure you guys tune in later on this evening, right here to the Casa D18 Studios channel, as well as over on the Jeff Meacham Network and across the Jeff Meacham Network multiverse of media as we get into the first open mic night of 2023. Myself, the Simple Man Noah Foster, James Hebert, and the West Coast professor Jeff Meacham will all be discussing the most recent news in the world of professional wrestling. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And then tomorrow, right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, it'll be time once again to step into the war zone. That's right, it'll be time for another edition of the weekly acquisition report where I, the Renegade, show you, the viewers, the latest additions to my ever-growing movie library. You're not going to want to miss out on that right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, on the Jeff Meacham Network, across the Jeff Meacham Network, Multiverse of Media, Open Mic Night, The War Zone, so many more musicals coming this month. You don't want to miss any of the content that's going to be coming to you right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. So make sure you smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, make sure that notification bell is turned on so you don't miss out anytime a video drops right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel or anytime we go live, as is the case with Statboy Sports Bar, Open Mic Night, pay-per-view PLE coverage, etc. Share these videos with your family, friends, loved ones, coworkers, movie fanatics, cinephiles in your life, fans of Matilda, fans of the story, fans of Roald Dahl. Anybody you can think of that would enjoy this content in this video, share it with them. It's the only way we're going to boost up my visibility in YouTube's algorithms so I can eventually get monetized, begin making some money on these productions. Thank you once again to everyone who joined me and tuned in today. It means more to me than you'll ever know. And I will see you guys next time.